so far. Tonight we're going to have a chat through the effect COVID-19 has had on teams within software testing. So the effect it's had so far and how we perceive things going forwards, you know, the positives, the negatives, etc. From there, we've got an excellent panel lined up for you this evening. We're going to be hosted by Nicola Martin. I'll pass over shortly so she can introduce herself. We're going to go through a list of questions. Obviously, there'll be a discussion between the panelists from that. If anyone would like to ask a question about any of the topics discussed, please just put your questions in the Zoom group chat and we can look to come to those towards the end, time permitting. But Nicola, over to you.
Thank you, Ashley. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this evening. My name is Nicola Martin. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I've been working in software testing for around 20 years now. I currently work in the AI and data science area, and I'm head of quality for a company called Adaga. This evening, we're joined by a brilliant panel. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves individually, but just to kick off, obviously Ashley's introduced me. We've got Callum Akehurst Ryan, we've got Stuart Day, Don O'Grief, Alan Giles, Marie Drake, and Nuria Manuel. So I'm just going to ask everybody to introduce yourselves individually, just a little bit about yourselves, where you're working and what type of stuff you're working in at the moment, and then we'll hop on to the questions. So if we could start with Alan, please.
Okay, thanks. So I'm Alan Giles. I'm a QA lead at SYGiST, part of Induction Healthcare. I've been in the QA and test zone for about 10 years now, in software a bit longer. I was in support before, so about 15 years. And I run the QA team at SYGiST. And we, in terms of COVID, we've been in the thick of it in that obviously healthcare, digital healthcare particularly, is a very big focus for everyone. And we provide digital solutions for hospitals. So obviously we've been overrun in the most recent kind of times. That's me.
Hi everyone. I'm Callum Akehurst Ryan. I'm a senior tester at Bloom & Wild and also an awesome dungeon master for Survivors UK. Most recently, I've found that in these times, I've had to find a new job. So I've actually gone through the sort of hiring and starting a new QA role actually within the COVID period. So yeah, it's been really interesting. It's me.
Everyone, I'm Dono. I'm a head of software delivery for a global printing solutions company. I run the QA team, but I also work closely with all the engineering teams as well, ensuring that we're delivering software to a fast and very high quality. Yeah, kind of it. Next.
Hiya, I'm Marie Drake. I currently work as a principal test automation engineer at News UK. I've been with the software testing industry for about 7 years now. And at the moment, I'm part of the product platform team at News UK. So we're trying to deliver a design system amongst other things. I also write about testing and also test automation tutorials at mariedrake.com. And yep, I'm just excited to share my thoughts on this panel.
Hi everyone, my name is Nuria. I'm a QA lead at Distributed, which is a venture-backed startup providing on-demand remote engineering teams to software development projects for enterprise and SMEs. At Distributed, I work on and manage the QA frameworks, testing strategies and test management. And actually prior to working at Distributed, I worked in a diesel engine manufacturing company where I focused on product validation, reliability and control engineering in hardware and software. So back in the day, Six Sigma quality assurance side. So excited to be here and just excited to discuss this topic.
everyone. So I'm Stuart Day. So I'm currently the head of quality at a retail company called Dunelm Staff Furnishings. Been in software delivery and the quality space for, well, 23 years now. Hence the lack of hair and the beard and the grey. But I have to say, you know, I thoroughly enjoy it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. One of the interesting things I find is that how in our space technology changes all the time, therefore we have to adapt. And actually during the COVID times, I think, you know, this is really kind of shone more than ever in terms of ways of working, how we recruit. So many things have been impacted. So it's going to be a really interesting talk.
Thanks, Stuart. Thanks, everybody, for your intros. Actually, Stuart, what you were just saying takes us very, very nicely into the first question. So obviously, the start of lockdown, it's been a massive shock to everybody in the public, and obviously it's been a massive shock to businesses. Are you or any of you, are all of your teams now back in the office, or are you still working remotely? And are you finding it harder or easier than it was when you were in the office? Or, you know, how have you found collaborating? Is that also harder or easier?
So
Yeah,
go for Callum.
I think Callum wants to go first.
Yeah, I can jump in on this. So my main specialism I'm testing with at the moment is exploratory testing. And one of the key outcomes of exploratory testing is really finding information out through the exploring and providing it in a timely manner back to the team. Because my whole team is currently remote and we're not working in the same office yet, and I don't think we will be until next year. One of the tricky things is being able to get in there and actually talk through things and collaborate with team members. So specifically finding developers to pair with or debrief that information back to, because especially when people are working from home, they get their headphones on, they're very in the zone, and you end up sort of chasing after people to give them information. One of the big things that I found out in this time is taking my own ego out of the equation, making sure that just because I found information, it might not be the most important thing to everyone right now. Yeah. So knowing when to sit back on things, you know, knowing I've got that information, say, got it when you need it, and hold back a bit.
Yeah. Okay, Stuart, you're up next.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that when we kind of hit the lockdown period was we'd spent a lot of time over the last couple of years really trying to put quality at the center of everything we do. So, you know, build the culture around that and you know, drive it through the heart. And we developed great collaboration. We've created a real sort of community, not just for our QAs, but for our engineers and our delivery managers and so on to be part of. And when we went into lockdown, all of a sudden we were in this place of, oh, we now need to adapt to work in lockdown. Well, actually what we eventually kind of worked out was, well, no, we still need to hold true to our values and our principles, but we need to find different ways to be able to work in the same and deliver the same things. So obviously, you know, there's certain things that we had to face into, you know, the remote Zoom thing, you know, in terms of how can we collaborate better over Zoom. We had to go and research more tooling. But we didn't want to lose the essence of, you know, getting around a whiteboard and actually just, you know, slapping some stuff up and, you know, having just brain dumping sessions and things like that. It was just thinking about how we could do it slightly differently. So we went from we need to change how we do things to actually, no, we don't. Let's stay how we want, you know, keep doing the things we do and just try and approach them slightly different using different tools. I think that was the big thing for us really early on that we kind of struggled backwards and forwards with.
Yeah, I think that's key. I think from my own company, I think I can speak for my team. I think we communicated less with other teams before. Found that as soon as lockdown started, we were communicating so much. I've had many conversations where I've been saying to people, "This is the first time I've really spoken to you," and we worked, you know, together for months before that, and you know, I still didn't really know half of the teams. And so now I feel like I really know people, and I think that the rest of my team are the same. We're really communicating well with other teams, and it's, you know, it's a testament to the tools that were available before lockdown that have now come into their own, just like Zoom, for example, you know, and Microsoft Teams, to name another one. You know, it's just really helped to make this process not as painful as it had to be. But yeah, thanks for that, Stuart, because I think I can identify with a lot of what you were saying. Donno's up next.
Yeah, with us, I'm lucky that I work in a company where we've got a lot of distributed offices already. So we're global with that. So there was a lot of remoteness to how we worked already, and a lot of those good practices in place. But one thing that certainly was there, I mean, you still had your offices, and people would talk within their cliques within those offices a lot more. And all of a sudden that was gone, and we found a real sharp increase of everyone talking to everyone, and a lot of meeting, massive increase in communication. And that was like that massive spike. It came down, and we actually started being a lot more respectful and aware of what was providing value and what was just chatter that really sometimes wasn't needed. I mean, look, chatter's needed, absolutely, but sometimes not. So yeah, we really got into a really good space of how we collaborate, and we talk really when we need to. There's no shyness about just reaching out. Look, I need your help on this, or I've spotted this. Could you look at it? There's a lot of that happening, and it's across the organization. It's right from the CEO right down to the most junior employee. Everyone communicates with everyone now, and that's quite fantastic in a way. We've seen some really good positive impact from this. Yeah, it's been great. Obviously the virus has been great, but yeah.
No, that's the thing, isn't it? You know, it's, you want to be happy and say these things have been fantastic, but you know what's happening outside obviously isn't, so it kind of takes the shine off it a bit. Marie?
Yeah, so for us, we're still pretty much remote. Most of the engineering teams, they're still working remote, but some people, like from the delivery or, you know, the leadership team, who needs to have that like physical direct conversation, especially if they have like wider meetings. Most of them, you know, they've been coming in maybe once or twice a week, but from the engineering side, it's still pretty much, you know, working from home. And initially, you know, I found it hard because like if you have kids, like for example with me, my daughter was with me like for the entire period, and before she was at nursery, and then suddenly, you know, we're all like inside the house, and it, you know, it just sort of like I had to, you know, make up some new routines, and there were times that I couldn't actually focus, you know, at work, and had to do some flexible time so I could like do some work when she's asleep. So I think that was the bit that I found, you know, difficult. But in terms of the actual communication at work, like same with everyone, I also felt that it improved. I've been speaking to other people from other teams that I haven't really spoken before, and it's just nice, you know, to have, that communication. And I also felt that because we've got like teams on different, you know, parts of like the world. So we've got like one contractor who joined us for a couple of months, and he was stuck in Bali. And then we've got a team in Sofia as well as in India. So I felt that, you know, because before I was just showing, so if I find a bug, I was just showing it to the developers and then writing up the bug report. But now I've also been sending like video evidences rather than just writing up, you know, this is the expected result, because I felt that the video evidence was really helpful to the developers. And it was actually great because the developer that I was working with, who was stuck in Bali, just said that, you know, the videos were really helpful. So we were able to sort of fix like all the issues that we found. And I think in terms of team like stand-ups, we've been doing some interesting stand-ups as well. So one of our Scrum Masters, she did this like game where you have to guess, you know, everyone's desk. and then you also have to like draw like your colleague, which was really fun. And then we also did like 2 truths and 1 lie, so I think that brought the team much more closer compared to before, which is always positive.
Do you think that that will be lost when you go back to working in offices? Do you think you'll, because that seems like you really, you know, got to know your colleagues. Do you think that kind of closeness will be lost when you go back to working in offices?
I don't think so, yeah, because we still have that that team, you know, based in Sofia. So I think in terms of like future work, even if we're in the London office, like we still have to, you know, do some remote meetings with them. So I think it would just bring us much more closer, even if the lockdown is finished.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. That was lovely. Nuria, you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I relate a lot to what everyone's mentioned, and in particular what Stuart said about the importance of maintaining core values. I believe we summarized it very well. We basically said over communication to an extent is key. And similar to Dono, as part of our business at Distributed, we're quite accustomed to working with remote engineering and development teams. It was the core team members who are based in London that basically had to go into a remote way of working. And we noticed from day one that it was important to definitely establish expectations from a communication perspective. So breaking down purposes of meetings and building a stronger system to manage and track the team's work and progress. That's worked very well with us. And also making sure to build on our existing documentation. So as mentioned, we already had team members that were already remote, which is the engineering and development team. What we did was build on the documentation for our delivery processes and metrics. So we knew what to focus on more. So I agree, a bit of over communication is important. Not to say to have multiple meetings, which can happen. You can have an overload of meetings, but instead being able to share information with key members, such as project updates, strategies, and any fires is very key, and has been very key and worked very well during this time.
Cool, it's brilliant. Alan, you're next.
So our case was initially, we went through quite a few different phases. So initially we were highly reactive. So everybody had to suddenly get on top of what was going on, because with our clients being in frontline healthcare, obviously there was a lot of, there's a huge amount of not known and a huge amount of rethinking that was going on in terms of trying to cope with what was going to happen, or what was happening. And then so we became really reactive as a team. We had to be really on top of everything that was going on, and basically drop all kind of medium and long-term kind of projects that we were thinking about, and just get straight onto whatever was needed on the spot. And then we went through another phase where we then had to start getting into less reactive and then more into anticipation of what might happen next. So that was quite an interesting thing, because where the roadmap for 2020 had been a particular, you know, like quite a solid route, it suddenly had to switch. For example, there was one feature kind of system where that was kind of due to go into retirement, and then suddenly that became number one focus for the entire group. So you know, it turned things on its head in lots of ways. And because we were very much, at the one hand, trying to follow what was going on, at the same time also trying to be a step ahead of what might happen next. So that was a really unusual and interesting kind of experience that we went through as a team, because we suddenly had to, instead of saying, well, this is what we're going to do for the next 4 weeks, we had to start saying, this is what we're going to do for the next 4 hours. And that had to keep zigzagging in different directions while we tried to catch up. So
was that the same all the way through lockdown, or just at the start?
As I say, it was kind of through phases. So we initially went through that kind of highly reactive phase, and then we went more into anticipation to try and second guess what was going to happen. And then when things started to level out more by the end of spring, kind of start of summer, then we started to have a better idea of where things were going to go. And then things started to get a bit more sensible in terms of how the timelines would go. But even now, it's still the case that because it's still not clear what direction things are going to go, the really positive thing to come out of it, to talk of positive things, is that the digitization concept in healthcare has suddenly become, oh, well, we might do it someday, or it's a nice to have. Suddenly it's become, well, we can't actually exist without having non-physical turning up to appointment options.
Yeah.
We need to switch. And so that's been a really positive aspect that we've been in the thick of. And suddenly it's become, oh, well, here's like this option. Suddenly it's, well, this is a requirement going forward. So actually we've now got quite a big list of requests for all sorts of new features and functionality that we didn't, it was a harder sell before, maybe, let's put it that way. And now it's a lot easier sell when people obviously see the benefit of getting your appointments on your phone, being able to change your appointments yourself with your GP, that, or with your with your dentist, or with your NHS specialists. That's obviously such a you know, in the technical world, that's such a basic thing that's been in the, you know, it's been entirely normal for airlines for 20 years, but to do that with your doctor is still way behind. And so it's actually been a really good boost from our point of view to get us more where we wanted to be. So yeah, that's definitely an upside of how things
I guess it's helped now. You probably, as staff, you probably, you know, as a QA team, you probably understand more about the product now than you did before.
Yeah, that too. I mean, it's more of a case of having to jump onto it.
Appreciation for it, right?
Yeah, definitely have to jump on it.
Yeah. Callum, you've got your hand up. Is that to say something else with this question, or did you want to be first on the next one?
No, I just wanted to jump in just to say, with regards to what Donna and Nuria were talking about, that over-communication side of things and having meetings and knowing when to talk, I'm finding a lot of not just my colleagues, but my friends are getting real burnout from these online talks.
Absolutely.
There's such a strong psychological impact on being able to see yourself on a screen and not wanting to look at yourself, but also just the... like we're talking more and with more people than ever before, and especially like in the QA side of things, you know, where information is our language. We're having to talk to people a lot more on using tools that are just a bit more alien than normal human contact, and it feels like there's a bigger bar to entry psychologically than just like a quick chat to someone sat next to you. So that's a big part of it as well, just the style of communication we're now using. So I think
the other thing to bear in mind, actually, to expand on what you're saying about it being, you know, a massive energy like draw, you know, is that some people are, you know, introvert, and being on camera can be, it's for me, I class myself as introvert, extrovert, and I always think that being on camera and even doing this, after this I'll need to go and have a rest. It's like my social batteries are burned out. So you know, imagine what it was like at the beginning of lockdown for people like me, when people wanted you to be on camera all the time, and it was incredibly hard going. It took me a long time to get used to it, and even now people probably say I don't go on camera enough but it's actually what I can handle. And I just advise people to just do what you can. If you can just speak in a meeting, just be there. You know, we know you're there, just speak, you know. But,
definitely.
Yeah, so.
At Bloom and World, we made like a company-wide pledge within those first like weeks of lockdown to say about how we were going to deal with being online and communicating. And we've got it to say, like, be kind to yourself as well as others. You know, you don't have to go on camera. Sometimes people are going to walk into the background. You know, do you really need to schedule this meeting? And even just as a case of, don't bash them up against each other. Finish meetings like with, you know, a 10-minute time slot to give yourself recharging energy as well.
Absolutely. I mean, like I can hear my little boy coming up the stairs now, and I'm thinking, is he going to come in or is he not? Hopefully he won't. That's the type of thing you have to deal with. But after a while, it was fine. And you know, I'm sure for everybody here, you know, people are used to it now. It's become the norm, if you like, new norm. Okay, so next question is, we've seen a lot of changes in the QA market, especially at the beginning of lockdown. And, it was actually, for us, we were hiring. And, I spoke to a lot of people. And I realized that a lot of people were being made redundant. So there were a lot of changes in at the start of lockdown. What changes did any of you notice? Maybe around the availability of roles and other changes to QA? Let's see who's putting their hands up first. Oh, everybody. Dono's first this time.
All right, so I thought I'd jump in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so me personally, my direct team that I was line managing, we saw a reduction in numbers. It wasn't just my team, it was across the company, and we saw a 30% decrease across the company. And it was more preservation of the company because we were unsure of what this will do affecting the bottom line. There was some stuff that we had to do, and it wasn't just reducing numbers, it was also reducing tooling, reducing costs, trying to pull back wherever we could. So yeah, we definitely had some loss of key engineers and people that we really enjoyed working with, which was sad. But at the same time, I've also seen in the market some really interesting, and I personally thought the quality of jobs and how they were advertised got a lot better because they had to be to pull the best people out, because the pool was so much wider.
Yes.
And also the people applying for those jobs had to think about how they market themselves so much better. So you're actually seeing an elevation of everything in that space. The only really bad story I have out of all of that is I was helping a friend who was looking at hiring for a particular niche contract role during the time. And there was a very junior role to come in and just sort of do the manual side of stuff. And she had a person that applied for the role that was like a proper senior, like 3 times the value of the salary that was on offer. And you were like, what the hell's going on here? It's like, I got made redundant. I need a job. I don't care. And that was quite sad. I was like, wow, people's value of themselves are like, just, they don't care anymore. They need something. And
I actually thought there was a lot of like reactive moves when people were going for roles. And I just kept thinking, if only they could hold out a bit longer, something that's more suited to them will come up. I think I was in my head thinking the market will, it's just a knee-jerk reaction. It will settle in a month or so. But obviously, lockdown went on a lot longer. And so that wasn't the case at all. And I do wonder how those people got on, but it's just the way that things are. Stuart is up next. Oh, are you still, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to reply to that when just saying I see it as that person will probably move on to somewhere else very soon, as they find something else.
They may well have, there wasn't just one person. I saw that a lot. So I heard stories as well from other people, and it was just like, wow, I hope that these people don't make mistakes and take permanent jobs that are not for them, because the worst thing you can do is just keep jumping from job to job. But I get that people were desperate and not sure what was going to happen. And for a little while at the beginning, for the most part, everything went really quiet. And I can imagine that it was worse for contractors than it is for perm. But yeah, the market was very, very up and down at the beginning. And it was just like, you were just unable to see where it might go. But we'll come on to more of that later, I think. We'll pick that up later. Thanks, Donna. Stuart's next.
Yes, I think one of lockdowns and this whole saga's been going on for months now, and I think it's like everybody's like, it's the new norm, and you kind of forget where we were at the point of lockdown. So if we actually think that we had IR35, that was that whole big thing that was going to impact us at the end of April or whenever it was, March, and all of a sudden, guess what? That's gone. And it was like, so we as a company were kind of setting ourselves up to roll contractors off, and we got more perm roles, and we were in that recruitment phase. And then lockdown hit, and we were like, oh, okay, so now what do we do? So we continued to try and recruit to start with, but then realized we had to pause roles. We couldn't do it with the unknown. But that didn't stop our contractors from rolling off. So it kind of left us in a void place where we were trying to, maintain, put us into a maintenance, if you like. But then what we did find when we opened up roles again, kind of like what you were saying, Nicola, that we were getting a lot of applicants that it was just taking a lot longer because there weren't as many roles out there. And we were getting so many applicants. It was really time consuming, but it was really kind of eye-opening and upsetting in a way, because you could see that people were just trying to apply for roles because they needed a role. And
even today I saw a role and there was something like 300 people applied for this one test role. And it had only been online for a few days. It flashed up on LinkedIn, and I thought to myself, I don't think I ever remember it like that.
Yeah. And I think
maybe the last recession, but I don't even think it was like that. But then.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing that I found was obviously when they reversed the IR35 side of things, all of a sudden I think, like, from a contracting perspective, the contractors that I knew were very much, oh great, we're going to be in a much better place again.
Yeah.
And then suddenly realised they weren't, because the roles weren't there and the companies weren't hiring. So it's been this roller coaster of emotions for so many people. And even if you're not somebody that, I've been very lucky, and my team have been very lucky that we haven't had to lose anybody, and we've continued to hire. But I know people that have been affected, and I'm sure everybody else knows people that have been affected if they haven't themselves. So it plays on your emotions one way or the other, and it's been quite a difficult time.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when we were hiring in, I think it was March, I actually got quite emotional after speaking to people. And it was the whole thing was such a, energy drain for me. I just felt like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I hope I found the right people, because I don't think I can do this again right now. Some of the stories were just so sad, and you could see that people were so desperate. I just couldn't really help anybody. And we had a lot of contractors, for example, applying for permanent roles, and it was very, very, very hard at the beginning. And I know I used to be a contractor. I was a contractor for 11 years. And I just know exactly how they were all feeling. That unknown is just, it's gives you sleepless nights, basically, not knowing what's going to happen. Okay. Yeah, next up, I've got Callum again. Right. Is that right? Or am I wrong? Am I reading this list wrong?
So I was one of those unfortunate souls that did lose a role during this period. So I can definitely speak to that. And what I can say is, given the sheer number of people that are going for jobs, the anxiety is massive, because suddenly you're so aware of all these people going into like every basic role that's there. And I think the response to that, especially from companies, has either been to create job adverts that now ask for all singing, all dancing, everything, to try and reduce the number of people applying. We call it the unicorn.
Yeah,
full-on unicorns. They've got 15 years of Java, 270 years of Groovy. They can do exploratory testing. They can lead a team. They can juggle. They can firewalk. They can do everything. And so you've got, and that might not even be what the role is for. But that's a way of trying to narrow people out. So that heightens your anxiety as well. And then coupled to that, again, just the rejections that are coming through on this mechanized basis, because they're just like, we can't give feedback. No. That amps up your, what you're doing as well. So I really feel for a lot of people in this time that it just really feels like there's just nothing out there, or even if there is stuff out there and there's just too much competition for it, or that companies are just not asking for you. So it can really feel really hard. Like you're saying, people, desperately trying to take things that aren't for them. But there is generally, and this is what I had to tell myself, there's generally a skill shortage, especially for good testers who have that critical analysis thinking, you know, that can do that. Even if you have a niche, if you're like an exploratory tester, you're not a software developer in test, or if you are a software developer in test and you know 3 languages, there are going to be roles out there. It's about like just chilling in some ways. And I know the anxiety makes that hard, but focusing down on these things, because the roles are starting to pick up.
I was going to say, are you still keeping an eye on the market, even though you've now got yourself a nice job? You know, are you still keeping an eye on the market, or have you just said, thank goodness, and, you know, getting on with it?
Yeah, I've kept an eye, and I can start to see that roles are starting to diverge a bit. People are going a bit less unicorn and starting to be a bit more focused on what they want as well. So, you know, if there's another round of lockdown and redundancies and stuff, it might swing to unicorn again. But
I had a theory about the whole unicorn thing, and I wondered if it was because the market had become, I'll use the word, saturated with contractors who were potentially going to go into permanent work. You know, first of all, as Stuart was saying, you know, there was the whole IR35 thing. When that wasn't a thing anymore, it was because, you know, we were going into lockdown. Do you think that companies were advertising for unicorns because they thought they could just grab all of these contractors with all of these skills? You know, they may never use half the skills that they're asking for, even if they had them. You know, do you think that's got an element of it, that companies were just seeing an advantage and making a grab? Or, you know, did they genuinely need those skill sets?
From my perspective, and I'm happy to dive over to someone that was actually doing hiring, but I've seen a lot in the past where people just, they don't know what they want. Quite a lot of like HR departments get involved in writing these specs, and it is just a case of here's a load of technology, and it's not focused to what a tester or what specific tester they want.
Yeah, I mean, I was asking you that because you've been through the process of going for those unicorn jobs, I guess. So if you've spoken to other people, you know, I have, and I know that, you know, companies were asking for outrageous things, you know, but just because they were in that position, that strong position, and they could. Now maybe it's a bit more balanced, but again, you know, just another lockdown, and that might change again, you know, and we'll go back to these, you know, weird and wonderful job descriptions. Okay, thank you, Callum. Nuria, you're next.
Yeah, I think a lot of things have been covered in what we're all saying. At Distributed, we were kind of blessed to be in a position, I believe similar to Dono, where we didn't let anyone go, but we were hiring for contractors. And you could just tell, similar to you, Nicola, it was sometimes a little bit devastating to see candidates being burnt out, and they were burnt out before even going into anything. And just the desperation at that stage, you could just see it really affecting people, and it's something that obviously we haven't seen pre-COVID. One thing that I did want to touch upon is the fact that COVID, just from a process perspective in the QA market, I feel like has definitely accelerated the need for just quality with speed. So the speed expectations have suddenly shifted into overdrive while trying to manage costs, therefore driving a balance between faster delivery and also budget for some organizations. And you can just tell. So we work with a lot of different projects and different companies, and you can tell some of the clients that we get in or customers that we get in, that is the focus. It's we need to deliver this fast. So it's been, I would say, exciting in a way, because it's something that we've been focusing on, which is driving a quality first approach, to be able to implement quality processes to fit that customer's particular need. So yeah, I wanted to focus more on the process side of things, and how retrospectives have definitely helped in maintaining a quality bar during this time from an end of projects perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually have any questions in there about, you know, do you think that maybe, I'm not going to ask you to say your own company, but do you, if you've been paying attention to any other, I think obviously the news is full of issues with systems right now, you know, and obviously it means that people have been doing, you know, companies have been doing that. They have been trying to, you know, drive delivery still whilst we've been in lockdown, still trying to be at the levels they were at before lockdown, and therefore, you know, being able to deliver on time and on budget. But I think that's come with a loss of quality. Obviously it has. We can see that from, you know, Test and Trace website. We can see everything that's in the news at the moment about systems, and I seem to be quite sensitive to it, and you know, thinking, oh my God, every time I hear about something else, you know, it's clear that quality has, you know, been sacrificed a bit. And I hope that these situations, although they're terrible, I hope that they are now going to make companies pay more attention to quality and bring it back to the forefront.
Yeah, what we found is that we were able to go into an opportunity of actually educating companies about quality and the importance of quality when it comes to whatever product delivery that they're trying to achieve. So it's almost been a, you know, as well as being the software development arm for companies, it's also been a, hey, let's talk about quality. Let's talk about why this is needed and why this is important, and a better process that would meet your desires. So there's a consultancy element to it too.
Absolutely, yeah. And that just even if your company wasn't in that you know, on that road to being like a consultancy, I think that's probably what's happening now. A lot of companies are having to pick up that type of work and that approach. I've got thumbs up going crazy on my iPad beneath me. Nuria, thank you very much. I'm going to move on to Marie. She's next.
Yeah, I mean, most of the points have already been, you know, covered, because within our team as well, we've actually paused, you know, hiring for, you know, QA roles. So we've just sort of, you know, gone on a route that, okay, we just need to advocate that since we don't have a lot of QAs, it should be like everyone's responsibility, you know, to do the testing. Some things that I've noticed though, and it's a bit opposite to what Callum noticed, because I recently saw this job advert for an SDET, and I think you're right that they try to condense, you know, a lot of the technologies, a lot of these buzzwords. And when I was reading it, it was just confusing. Like, do you want a full stack developer, or do you want a QA engineer, or do you want an SDET?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it doesn't help that there's still this perception that everything should be automated. Because one of the key things that actually threw me off on that advert is it says that, oh, everything must be automated, so this is not a job role for people who like to test manually, which I think, you know, that's completely untrue, because there's always a place for people who love to do exploratory testing, and you just can't automate, you know, everything. So I think there's this still misconception that, you know, everything should be automated. And I think maybe, you know, lockdown has also triggered that, because they think that, okay, with automation comes, you know, more speed, and it's just really like, you know, it's there to help but not to replace, you know, manual testing.
I think there's, you know, to back that up 100%, there are, you know, things happening. So like, for example, this meeting is actually partially in, you know, in conjunction with BCS, and BCS software testing group. We're involved in a lot of the discussions around standards, and a lot of the documentation for quality is being updated at the moment. So, and it's purely because of what's happening right now in the world, and, you know, the fact that we've got to focus on new technologies and things like that. So, you know, I'm hoping that with the, you know, with the new updates to standards, people might start to introduce those within their companies again. And, you know, that would give you the basis for and an understanding, and it helps you to communicate things like the fact that you can't automate everything. There are parts of processes for systems that are naturally, you know, by their nature, they're offline processes, for example, or, you know, you won't find, you know, you won't find bugs just by running automation packs every week. Seeing a green light every week on a pack of tests does not mean that you're testing the system and everything's green and passing, you know. And if you know, if companies have been in the habit of only hiring like software developers in test with a more of a leaning towards being developers, I think that's changing as well now. And we're seeing more teams hiring people with more of a QA background, and, you know, that's becoming more prevalent again, I think. And we're looking for more of those analysis skills and being able to do exploratory testing really well, and just being clever about the way you're testing it. It's not just about automation, but automation obviously is key and needed, but it's complementary. That's what I think. Yeah. I hope you're reading LinkedIn. Okay, so who is next in between all the other messages that everyone keeps on sending? So I'm so sorry, I've lost everybody. Alan, I think it's you next.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in times of trouble, in times of trauma, that's when, you know, the weakest links kind of fall apart. And that's true in systems, as we've seen so many places crumble under the load. Things like online deliveries, in retail particularly, kind of struggled. So, and I think that same thing, I've seen a lot of interest in performance related roles now. I've seen a lot more interest in education as well, in terms of people wanting to get better au fait with load testing, with performance testing, and companies have suddenly had an interest in that area where they might not have had so much attention to it before. And I think that same principle applies to the hiring process as well. So places where had a kind of half-hearted hiring process, they now suddenly get exposed by the things that you've all been saying, that if you kind of only partially knew what you wanted, or you wanted the best around, or whatever that means, suddenly that becomes difficult. If you have 500 people apply, well, how do you work out the best if you don't know what you want yourself? So I think it's an interesting thing that this kind of crisis has highlighted these kind of gaps, and you know, the teams, the organisations who've invested in that kind of thing probably barely noticed, and the ones who never really paid that much attention to it are now suffering to either to hire people or to get their teams in order.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I think we're about to lose Dono for a moment, but he said he'll be back. So, okay, thank you, Alan. I think you were the last one on that question. So I'll move on to the third, probably my biggest question here. So quality and teams are being pushed to the forefront again, as I mentioned earlier. We've got the very, very public issues with the use of AI models in the news recently, and obviously Test and Trace website, which I hear about all day long if you listen to the radio enough. Do you think that testers will want to stand out from the crowd with certifications and professional memberships? What are your views on these, and do you see them becoming more or less important as we move forward? Who wants to go first? Oh, nobody's putting their hand up. Stuart, you go for it, and then and then Alan. Okay.
That was that
Stuart
awkward
first.
silence moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the first one.
I think it's an interesting thing. I think I'm not a big fan of certifications. I don't think you know. I think some people like certifications and certs and stuff. Personally, you know, I think that's great, and I think, you know, the reward in that for me is the learning rather than the certificate you get out the back end of anything, you know, for me. But I think in terms of, you know, I think what this is showing us is, and it comes to, you know, something that Alan was mentioning around as well, around that more broader skill set of, you know, what we need to kind of adapt to. So, you know, we need to think more around, you know, having skill sets within performance and, you know, all these other areas that maybe our QAs wouldn't have kind of thought about before. And, you know, whilst we talk about the unicorn, I think, you know, really what the roles are going to kind of evolve more into is quality advocates and really coaching quality into teams more, you know, and that shared ownership. And I think that that will be kind of how I feel though things will kind of move forward and evolve more so than necessarily chasing certificates and, you know, that kind of thing. You know, there's always going to be organizations out there that kind of like what Callum was saying earlier, that want 250 years worth of experience on X and 1,200 certificates on Y, you know. But I think, you know, in the industry, I think we've become more aware of actually that all-round kind of mindset, more or less, not just, you know, not necessarily technical skill set, but mindset around quality. And that's really, when I recruit, that's what I'm really trying to go after, is that mindset of, okay, you don't have, you know, you can't code in 17 languages, but you can damn well hold your own in a conversation about how you build quality into a product and understand your customer, and you know, where you can test for quality throughout your process and stuff like that. So that for me is, I think, is a lot more important, and you know, than certifications. But
Good, thank you very much. Okay, Alan, you're next.
So yeah, I'm kind of on a similar kind of position on that, in that the knowledge and the development, like what I was talking earlier about kind of education, doesn't have to be a certification, but you know, just the ability to be able to do something and an interest in it. I think that's really boomed in the past half year. That I know lots of people who are doing lots of courses, either formal or informal, that they never would even thought about before, and actually getting a lot out of it, and becoming better people, better professionals as a whole from it. And I think from that point of view, the whole market, to go back to the market kind of question, I think that area will, that kind of movement is creating a better rounded skill set from a lot of people. And on the other hand, it's also creating a lot more specialized skill set from a lot of people. So I think that's actually kind of a fork kind of direction. It's kind of going two ways, in a sense. You're going to get a lot more all-rounders and a lot more specialists, rather than like a wide spectrum. I think it's going to be, you know, that whole education area rather than certification. I think that's creating that kind of direction. Yeah,
I mean, so you can actually, I mean, obviously we know each other outside, right? So we've met people before who had no skills at all, no experience at all in QA, who wanted to become QAs. And for those people, do you not think that, you know, they've been told, go and do an ISTQB foundation, and that will be enough to get yourself a job? You know how angry we've got about that before. You know, how do you think that is actually valid? Do you think that could help somebody to get a job if they never had any experience? Because obviously we're talking about people who already have experience becoming more rounded with their skills and experience. Do you think that somebody with no skills at all who wants to get into testing could potentially benefit from having certification of some description?
I think it can form part of that journey, but I don't think, I think, again, to go back to what I was saying earlier about the employers who don't necessarily know what they want, it's an easy answer to say, I'm looking for a tester, what's a test certification? That's the most popular one. There you go. Yeah. Whereas on its own, I don't think it does anything. It needs to be part of a package. And I definitely wouldn't say it's a bad thing to have. You know, if I saw somebody's CV with it on, that I wouldn't think, oh no, not another person with another certification. It's not that kind of, you know, impression you'd get. But I think it can form part of the journey. It's one of your rucksacks out of the baggage you're bringing along your journey, rather than, you know, in itself, it's not really going to get you much.
Fair enough. Thank you. Nuria, you're up next.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Alan and Stuart have mentioned. I think it's not a bad thing to have it if it's linked to experience. If it's just a tester basically with no experience getting the certificate or getting certified, In a way, it's like getting a diploma or a university degree without having any experience to back that up, so it can become more challenging to be hired. I do think getting certification with experience can increase your marketability throughout the industry, especially in certain countries as well. Like in certain African countries, it does add that level of credibility a bit more. But once again, once you have experience. But I'm a strong believer that strong adaptability to market changes, to system changes, software changes, and needs from a skills perspective, and even being customer facing, which I think is very, very important for a QA, to be customer facing and have that experience to work with customers, and having a portfolio that highlights that is just as important, especially during these times.
Yeah, I think if you're investing in yourself and you're keeping your training up to date and stuff, I think you can become that all-rounded person that everyone is alluding to. So yeah, definitely, I think you're all right, to be honest. Thank you, Nuria. I've got Marie next.
Yeah, I really agree with what Nuria said, about, making sure that you have time to expand your portfolio and things like that. Because I think as a tester or, with any like roles as well, I guess if you want to stand out, like certifications aren't enough. So for example, I recently started blogging, and that alone has given me a lot of opportunities. For example, speaking in this panel, whereas before I wouldn't even do all these things. So I think that's really helped. And it just really solidifies what you're learning, because if you're writing about it and if you're teaching what you want to sort of say to the people who's gonna read your blog post, then that establishes that you have that core understanding of that subject. And I think certifications alone doesn't really sort of help that. You have to do a lot of the experience, you have to do a lot of the hard work, because for example, I actually did the ISTQB certified tester foundation when I was starting out, or maybe I wasn't, just listening, when I did the course, but I don't have any recollection of, teachings about how to do accessibility testing.
No, exactly.
And I know Callum is like an accessibility advocate as well. And it's just really most, recently that I've started learning about these things. And if I had just kept on my certification, I wouldn't even know how to do accessibility testing.
He's writing more messages.
Yeah, I think he's gonna speak now.
He's desperate. And he's next. Anyway, Callum, you're up. Go for it.
So I just wanted to agree with the points that people have just made about. So Stuart was mentioning about coaching and advocating, and you mentioned about a portfolio, and then Marie said the best way to do that is about blogging. I think people are going to be looking at people's online presence within the community, like events like this, blogging, but also getting involved in things like the Ministry of Test, just to showcase that they can work with people online and discuss and coach and advocate for quality online with people. Because the more we're going to have to work online with people, the better those skills are honed through forums like that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Dono, is he here or?
Yeah, daughter's in bed now.
You're here. Okay, that's okay.
No, everyone, I agree with what everyone's saying there. And the only things I'd add, I mean, I did it myself when coming into the testing career back when it was called the ISEB.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Think about that.
Yeah, I never found it useful even in that first job. It was completely pointless in what it did. It only told people, I went and I was proactively finding out about testing, and that's what it told me. And you can do that in other ways as well. I personally, in any job ad that I put out there for someone I'm recruiting, I purposely do not ask for certifications, because if you have them, provide them. But I want to know what skills and experience you can bring to the table. That's important, not what you've learned on a textbook.
So even if I guess this goes out to everybody, but obviously I'm aware that we're spending a lot of time on this one. But even if these certificates and things? Because obviously I'm not sure when ISTQB, how often that gets updated, for example. But if it started to include more modern techniques and you know, just more focused on how people are testing now, do you not think that might be of benefit? So like, for example, when people are trying to think about, you know, investing in their people, they might think, well, you know, they can do any like Udemy course or something online, but maybe having something with a bit of oomph, you know, something with a bit more prestige behind them, you know, for clients that might, they might want to look at CVs. Like I worked for a test consultancy. If we were to be put forward for a role, we had internal CVs that had to go to the clients and they had to vet them. And the things that they would want to see were what your qualifications were, and as well as the experience. Do you not think that maybe in some ways they do add a little bit of something to your CV? Or do you really think that because it seems like everybody just seems to think that they're no good, but actually I may be controversial and think that they have their place?
I really would like to answer that, because I think it's I think there is value. Like I said, I don't ask for it. It's up to the candidate to supply.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then from there we can have a conversation, and how does that relate?
Mm-hmm.
Just your point on, could it become more valuable if they updated it? I'll take the answer, because this question was actually asked in my ISED course.
Oh, right, okay.
The guy doing the course, and he answered saying like, well, we could, but how do we cover everyone's way of testing? That would take a year of course, and that's not feasible, and that's why they don't. So I don't think it would be feasible to do that.
Very interesting. Callum, oh no, who's next? It's Alan. Alan, do you want to say something? And then we've got Callum, and then I'm going to jump on to the last question.
I'm just going to make the point that when you go on a course, it's not just about getting the certification, but also about meeting people and networking. And that aspect has totally also flipped on its head for me, that the whole offline networking obviously kind of disappeared temporarily. And as Maria and in my case the same, that suddenly you get the chance to teach as well as to learn. And there's so many options now for you to do so many different, to give courses, take courses. And the whole networking aspect of you get your peers who you can spend time with now, I think that's actually a really big aspect of the job kind of job hunting process, is that you also, because some people can get chains of jobs just by networking rather than applying. And that's obviously an aspect that you get from taking certifications, you know, as a kind of a byproduct. Just wanted to kind of point that out as well.
Well, I actually think I used to network quite a lot, and a lot of my friends were testers, a lot. And I mean, like, socialize outside of work all the time. And then suddenly I think the big recession hit in, what was it, 2008? Can you remember back that far? I can't remember. You're younger than me, but anyway, I can't remember exactly when it was, but I can distinctly remember that suddenly we went from being friends to being, you know, competition for each other. And suddenly the number of friends I had who were QA just dropped off. And it was, you know, it was quite difficult to see, because then that meant that I wasn't getting jobs as easily as I had done. Like you say, word of mouth, and someone knows you, so they'll tell someone about you. I never got that anymore. I had to actually start going to interviews. That was, you know, it was crazy to me. I had to do the process that everyone else does. So yeah, I can relate to some of what you were saying. Okay, I won't say where Marie is right now, so I'll go on to the final question, which I have to scroll all the way up for. Okay, so final question is, what are your predictions for changes in testing post-COVID? E.g., changes to any of our skills, roles, the way we, you know, have teams, and maybe even if somebody is contract or has been contract here, if they could talk about what they think about the differences for permanent resource and versus contract. Let's see who's coming up.
I can go.
Oh, whoa, I've got quite a few people. I think maybe my network's gone a bit funny, but I've got, what's going on here? It's a thumb. I think Callum wants to go first. I'm not sure why he's +1ing. Callum. Oh, it's not. Dono, do you want to go next? Go for it.
I think Callum was first there.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but he decided he was fed up with putting the thumbs up.
So I really think that in the short term, where we have people that are more devolved, and there's going to be more focus on people working individually from home, there might be a short-term dip in things like collaboration. So those skills where we talk about exploratory testing, which is a lot about finding information and sharing it to people, may well sort of drop off in the short term. And we'll focus a lot more on checking over testing. So we'll have a strong push towards automation, especially for CI/CD, and then even go as far as to look for cheap sort of manual checkers as well for things. So sort of like pushing to, because we've seen that working on camera works. What about offshore testing again? So I think there'll definitely be a strong shift towards software developers in test. And automate everything approaches, and then potentially even like back to the days of waterfall for quality as well.
Yes, no, that you're not lying. I actually have, maybe not fully waterfall, but I've seen, like, you know, you have Wagile, and all those kind of like hybrid. Yeah, right. So I think that what's happening is that it's less Wagile, but I think people are taking maybe the better bits of waterfall, like expanding sprints out to not just be 2 weeks now, but to maybe be a month, to allow all the automation that needs to happen, you know, rather than trying to cram it all into 2 weeks, which is, you know, doesn't work for every project. But yeah, I see those type of changes coming. I definitely think maybe we went too far down the road with Agile, and maybe people are trying to roll back a little bit until they get used to it. Yeah. Thanks, Callum. Right, Dono, now it's your turn.
No worries.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I completely hear what you're saying there. How I take the approach on this is actually, I think we need to work a bit smarter. I see that. So personally, what I'm trying to do at my current job is actually remove the word or the title of QA, because it comes with that historic connotation. Let me finish. I see you, Callum.
No, I'm not saying a word. You go ahead. No, I'm listening.
It's not removing quality. It's just removing that actual word of quality assurance or QA, because everyone just says, oh, QA is test. And that's wrong. It's completely wrong. And everyone's just stuck in that old way of thinking. So what I'm actually pushing for is now, look, your QAs of old, they're actually there to help you deliver. They're there to support you delivering quality products faster. And with that, we are pushing the entire team to actually define their testing, to find their approach, to find how they're going to tackle the problem up front and write the tests and then code. And from that, you've actually all of a sudden freed up a lot of time. And at the end, you can say, right now, we can put in the human element where we're actually going to get value and properly exploratory test this with some proper focus and some time to actually allow you to do it properly as well. Too often it gets too crunched at the end and you don't actually get any value out of what you're doing. So I think that's how I see it is changing and how it is going. And I think this whole COVID side of things is only pushing it faster as people are wanting to deliver things faster these days and seeing quality suffer. Like, well, how do we stop this?
No, I absolutely agree. Alan, didn't you present about, you know, changing the names of roles and things like that? I'm sure you did.
Yeah, I gave a talk a few months ago about that on the topic of QA.
Yeah. So Dono, catch up with Alan afterwards because he can tell you all about it.
Definitely.
He's got some good ideas. Okay, thank you very much. Stuart, you're next.
So I think this is a really interesting question, right? Because I think that depending on the organization you're in, depending on your customers, this can go one of 2 ways, 3 ways, 4 ways, I don't know. And it kind of comes back to something that Nuria was saying earlier with that whole speed with quality. So a lot of organizations have jumped on the speed bandwagon because they think it's what they need to do. And they've jumped into CI/CD because, again, it's what they think they need to do. without really reflecting on, well, do we actually need to do it? So one of the things that when I rejoined Dunelm at the start of last year, that they really gone full steam ahead with getting to continuous deployment, not just CI and continuous delivery, but just automatically deploying this stuff into production. That's where they wanted to be. But we didn't have the working practices to the left of that, and this is where real shift left comes in.
Yeah.
To build the quality in before we even push our PRs up or whatever. So yeah, we could. I mean, to be fair, these days it's pretty damn easy to build a pipeline that can get you from A to B really, really quickly. You may have a few tests in there, you may have hundreds of tests in there, but those tests may not add any value. And that's so one of the things I've kind of been working with the guys on very heavily to start with is very much kind of what you were saying there, Donna, in terms of your QAs are there to help you build quality into your product. They're not just there to test for quality later. So the whole conversation was very much about, right, let's slow down and then let's start to speed back up. And actually, let's only go as quick as we really need to go, right? Because are our customers ready for 20, 30 releases a day? They might not even give a damn, right? So why are we trying to chase it if they don't care? So it's really understanding, we talk about understanding our customers from what do they want from a product perspective, but also how often do they want it?
Yeah.
And these things will really drive, how we kind of approach, the quality side of things, and where we need to bake that quality in. And for me, it starts with understanding our customer actually at the far right, to then feed that back into the far left. Because if we don't understand our customer, then we're kind of blind, and we're very much going to do something wrong. So I think that's for me is where we really need to. Organizations really need to take a step back and go, do we really need to be doing this? And not just jumping on the bandwagon for the sake of it.
Do you think that, well, I guess that's correct and true, but I'm just in my head thinking all of these companies who might be on the edge and thinking that, if we don't work this quickly, if we don't offer our clients what they want, they'll just go to somebody else and we'll lose that business.
Yeah, so I think, and I think in those instances, that's where you really need to understand your customer. Yeah, because it might be just a perception you have that they'll go to other businesses. But if you really understand your customer, you understand what they value, then you can make that decision as to, yes, we need to release to our customer with quality 30 times a day. Or it might be that you need to do it once every 2 weeks. And then you can drive the practices that support and enable that. And there's a load of obviously behavioral values that come with that as well. And that's a lot of the time, the whole behavioral value side of it is a lot of the time the stuff that gets forgotten.
Yeah.
Technology is way beyond, the behavioral value side of things. It's there, it can do stuff really quick, happy days. But if you don't have the behavioral values supporting it and the mindset, you're not going to benefit from it really, in all honesty.
No, I agree. Great. So I've got Nuria on the list next. She's got a thumb up.
Yeah, this just goes with what Stuart was saying, but in my opinion, testers being at the forefront of customer discussions. I think it's absolutely important, and the testing team have an important role in understanding very clearly the project requirements as well as the customer requirements from day one. It gives the customer not only confidence in what is being delivered from an expertise perspective, but it also gives the team major confidence in what is actually being produced. I also think that in terms of changes that are happening, I think it's a quality first approach is being taken in a lot of different industries. And by quality first approach, I mean developers and not only developers, but testers having a DevOps mindset when it comes to testing and ensuring that testing is embedded from the start. So from the project's gathering, scoping stage, and having that prevention in the beginning before going into the detection side of things.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay, next is Marie.
Yeah, I think in terms of what new skills are going to be more important post-COVID, because I definitely think accessibility and security testing is something that's going to be much more pushed towards the left, because we've got like normal things now that everyone can do. It can be easily accessed online, so we need to make sure that it's also accessible by everyone. And I think because of COVID, in my opinion, I think it's put a big emphasis on that, because for example, if you need to do like groceries or other things, you can just do it online. So I think as testers, we have that responsibility that we need to make sure that it's also accessible, like by everyone. And I've seen a lot of tools that we can now use nowadays, and it's just really making sure that we do it like further up the cycle, rather than thinking of it as an afterthought. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I think you're the last person. Okay, so we've kind of come to the end of all of our questions. Thank you, everybody. Some fantastic answers, actually, and some really good conversation. I've seen lots and lots and lots of comments and questions. I don't know if anyone can see. I think Callum's been answering some of them. Let me see if I can see any. Bear with me.
If possible, as it's at the bottom there, Stephen Now's comment around.
Yeah, go for it. Grab one of those.
The whole thing of it should be the business analysts taking the customer focus side of things. Yeah, being customer centric in your role, I think, is incredibly powerful and will really help you to drive quality far more easier than if you don't have it. Yeah, for example, take it as if you've got, say, a code bug from a code scanner that just says, oh, this would provide this sort of error, but actually for the customer it provides no error, but the whole code that was delivered there provides immense value. Does it matter? No. The customer's happy and the customer's getting value, and that's what's important. So I think having that view of what the customer wants and what the customer values as quality is absolutely important.
Yeah, it's very important. Can anyone see? I know Callum's in the chat. Callum, can you see any questions that anyone had?
Yeah, so there's a good one here about what's our view on language skill certifications and how you can be a much more effective tester with polyglot reading skills. I mean, I'll jump straight into that if that's cool, to say I find that especially around coding and so on, as a tester, it's good to know enough to be dangerous, to help the team with what's needed, and to be able to maybe help on reviewing like unit tests and integration tests and service level tests, maybe support writing those, and also set your framework up if that's the direction you're going in. Where they're really, really useful is giving you a bit of kudos or a bit of heft when it comes to engaging with and collaborating with the developers on your team. If they can see that you've got technical skills and you've got the oomph to back that up with, that collaboration is going to be a lot more like peer-to-peer as well. So that's like a really good direction to sort of like look at those sort of coding language certifications.
Okay. Did anyone else see any questions there?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that and say, okay. I think that's a really good point in terms of the perception of value of the QA team, that by knowing more languages, by knowing any coding languages, and also understanding your customer and all the other things that are involved in delivering the software product to the end-to-end kind of process, all of that gets away from what Donna was talking about, the old-fashioned tester who sits in a cupboard and taps on the keys and says, I've done 2,000 tests and 5 of them failed, but I don't know why. That gets it totally away from that kind of that kind of perception that, you know, test people just test, and that's their purpose. If the more you know about your customer and the more you know about coding, all goes towards making your value better as a team.
Yeah. No, I agree. We've had a few people who've had to drop off panel-wise. Do we want to try and wrap up for now? I'm not sure. We could probably go through some of the questions and answer them offline, actually. I'm not sure how we would do that, but we get everyone's details. We could email out answers or something.
So there's just I think there's a follow-up question there from Patrick, and that question is, can you go jump into automation testing with no testing experience? Ooh. So I think this is a really interesting question, because there's a lot of discussion around, in the industry around, learning automation. How can I automate? How do I automate? And not enough around why you would automate.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we think about the technical capability of doing, coding and doing some automation, rather than why we do it, and actually really understanding where it fits into our practices and and workflows and stuff like that. And I'm having this conversation with some of my guys in the team at Dunelm right now, and I'm doing kind of personal development reviews with them, and it's really around, some of them are saying to me, I need to learn automation. So my question back to them is, why? Why do you need to learn automation? Talk to me about why you feel as though you think that's, because I'm not telling them they have to. Nobody's telling them they have to, and it's a real kind of concern out there in the industry that they need this. They have to do this.
They have to have it, or else they'll be no good to anyone if they apply for something.
Exactly. Yeah. But for me, the value really comes in the understanding of why you would automate something, where and when, not just being able to do it. So just learning, you can absolutely learn automation frameworks and automation checking, or whatever we want to call it, on today or tomorrow or whatever, without having any testing experience, because it's just technology, right? But understanding when and how and why you use it, that's the big thing. And you don't ever, that's the thing that people need to remember.
Good answer. I hope that answered your question, the person who posted. Have we got any more that we want to try and answer?
I thought that one tied quite neatly into Mahul's question earlier around what about codeless automation tooling?
I saw that pop up, yeah.
And there's a lot of debate about this being on LinkedIn recently, which is great. And it comes right back down to why do you need to do it, and making sure that you're clear on the purpose of bringing it in. Mm-hmm. So where I work, yes, I brought in a codeless scripting AI front-end automation, and the reason behind that is, let's get the front end tested with that, because it's easy to maintain and it's costs us less for maintenance, so we can buy time for all the other stuff we need to do.
Yeah,
that's the purpose. It's not that it's the best tool, it's the best tool to buy me time for my team to do better things. And I think that's a key thing around that, just to back what Stuart was saying.
Good. Right. I think we can wrap up there. Thank you, everybody. It's been brilliant. I think we've got deeper into conversation than I thought we would, but yeah, we've done really well. In fact, I could foresee us doing something like this, but maybe not on COVID, but on another subject. It would be really great to get together with all of you again. I've seen all the hand claps. Thank you, guys. That's so nice. Okay, Ashley, do you want to close off? Are you happy to join?
Yeah, certainly. Firstly, thank you very much, Nicola, for facilitating this and hosting, and obviously helping to organise everything with the guys at BCS. Also, everybody on here, Alan, Callum, Nuria, Dono, Stuart and Mary, who's left, thank you very much for partaking and putting together such a great panel, and yeah, this great talk. Like Nicola said, I can see already all of the positive feedback coming through as well. So thank you very much for this. Everybody that's obviously joined us, this evening as well. Thank you for attending. We will send out the recording of this probably tomorrow afternoon. So obviously that's there for you to view back, share as much as you can. And again, any questions, please feel free to reach out and we can obviously try and get those answered as well. Also on a personal note, for anyone that's on here as well, if you're looking for any further information on, you know, the current market, any sorts, you know, your personal situation, feel free to reach out to myself. You know, we can set aside some time to have a conversation around the state of the current market. You know, we are seeing positive signs, you know, things are picking up, and like the guys say, there's changes within the job specs, and you know, now that teams are looking again or able to look again, and you know, there are things that are in the pipeline, and obviously positive signs. So if I can help in any way, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Likewise, if anyone's hiring and they need any help, feel free to reach out to me also, and I'm sure we can help out there too. But no, thank you very much everyone tonight, and hopefully we see you all soon. Take care, guys.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye-bye. Take care.
I personally recommend Ashley. He got me my current role. He's a good guy. Really
Thank you very much, Dono.
You better find him his next one as well.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.